Dr. Ju-chen Chen at the other end, on the other sofa. She is a lecturer in the Department of Anthropology at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and her research concerns cultural production by domestic workers. So please welcome Ju-chen to HKU.
Now I also feel embarrassed because being a teacher, I prepare a PowerPoint. I don't know if that's inappropriate to have a PowerPoint here, but I think that, Leif has helped me to put it out. Maybe I should stand here. Okay, so let me know if I'm not looking at you and it's already 10 minutes. So thank you very much for Julie and Vivian for inviting me to be here. To me, I thought this is not just a sharing, it's such an interactive process to keep helping me to think about what I have been doing. So I don't know if you can recognize where this is. It's a part of Hong Kong, right? This photo is taken in Hong Kong. And I would just let you look at the photo, but talks about who I am and what I do. Okay, so I'm an anthropologist, and I've been studying the Filipino domestic worker community in Hong Kong for 5 years. And one of my focus is beauty pageants. So I study why they participate and joining in the beauty pageants. And because of beauty pageants, I met a lot of overseas domestic workers / photographers. Means that there are many photographers groups. But most of the time when I met them at beauty pageant, they are like event photographers. So they take photo of the pageant, or they are like portfolio photographers. They make portfolio for the candidates, right? So doing rehearsals, taking portraits, etc., etc. But gradually, I also started to know some of them. So for those photographers, this is a kind of part-time job for them. But they are also domestic workers who just spend their very precious day off to spend a lot of time in different corners of Hong Kong, just try to take a good photo. And they often, take thousands and thousands of photos and waiting for hours and hours just for one photos. And think about how intensive their work is and how precious off time is. On that context, then this is really amazing. So actually, I am inspired by Afterward exhibition. I met two of my key informants at Afterward exhibition. So I started to working with them. Both of them are sensational photographer members, let's put it that way. So this photo is actually a stairway in Central. And when I saw this photo, I started to get so serious about it. To me, it's a very powerful photo. It seems to tell me a lot and tell me a lot about Hong Kong, about a corner of Hong Kong, because it's very close to Chater Road, the beauty pageant main stage, let's put it that way. But I never really paid attention to it. So after I saw this photo taken by Joanne, they asked me to drop their last name, so I just addressed their first name, Joanne, and I said, Joanne, what in your eyes is Hong Kong? So how do you see Hong Kong? This is so amazingly beautiful. So I go home and, can you move to the next slide? Thank you. So I go home and Google it. And could you see the little spiral at the corner of the park? That's that stairway. And it's actually the intersection of Queensway and Garden Road that we probably pass by all the time. It's just a usual stairway, but we just didn't pay attention to it. But if you still remember that image, that's how it looks like from a Filipino domestic worker's eyes. So I thought that's so powerful and started to do a project about domestic workers who being photographers for two reasons. One is academic, because I'm interested in doing visual ethnography, and I'm thinking how could I use their photo to present their story. The other one is more, activist. I'm not really an activist, but I'm hoping that I could be one. So I'm thinking that if we could show people, how talented they are, then people may, change their impression of photographers. But it's just a very new project to me. I'm only doing this for a little while, but it's already brought me some critical feedback to myself. So for the rest of my 10 minutes, I would just very briefly talk about what I think that, those are the critical things that I learned. Okay, so can I have the next one, please? Okay, so that's a stairway, right? So let's look at it again. And then next one. This is, I asked Joanne and Lian, the two photographers I work with, I asked them to choose a few photos and then tell me, how can we learn about, Hong Kong in your eyes in those photos, and tell me, how maybe from the photos you see yourself as a resident in Hong Kong. So that's my question to them. And here I didn't edit anything, so that's their original explanation of each of the photo that they chose. So you could see that for that stairway, she talks about, how it is a beautiful stairway, but Hong Kong people don't pay attention to them, just like they don't pay attention to the helpers. So that's one of the reflection. And next one, please. Okay, this is another photo. I wonder if you can recall that you see this commercial on the street. It's actually now everywhere in Hong Kong. And it's a commercial of the watch, right? But Lian wait there hours after hours after hours, just wait for a white girl to pass by and take a look at the photo, and then she shot it. So it's again a really amazing photo with very, very limited after editing. And we can see her description of this photo. Yeah, she says like a time machine, right? And for the helpers, when she saw the photo, she kind of feel like, I wish I am that girl, so I have that time machine and I can travel in time, finish all my job, and then have time to do what I would like to do. So that's her words. And then the next one. Okay, this to me is a very ordinary photo, because I am an anthropology who studied beauty pageant, including a lot of cultural, parade and events. And so to me, this is a very typical event photos. So I say, when we sit down and talk about this photo, I kind of feel like, I don't really know how to appreciate this one. I kind of feel like, what should I say? And I say, oh, so this is in one of the events, blah, blah, blah. And then, then this is Joanne's photo, but Leanne cut in and said that, look at her eyes. Look at the sadness in her eyes. She's smiling, but you could see the sadness in her eyes. That's domestic workers' real life in that pair of eyes. And then Joanne started to cry, and cry really hard. So it's a really, really touching moment in my research. But let's see what Joanne say about this photo. It's too long, okay? But I can summarize for you. Basically, she's saying that it's a very tough life to be a domestic worker. I can only think about sacrifice and think about endurance as my weapon. But when I be a photographer, I kind of feel like I can relieve my stress, etc., etc., right? Okay, so what I would like to say about the critical thing of what I learned is, I say that I have two purposes. One is academic, the other is more activist. The academic part, I started to realize that, echoes what Julie started by saying, that as a researcher, right, someone who works with domestic worker, what's our role in presenting their voices? And I have also been playing with the title of the exhibition, right, visualizing the voices of migrant domestic women. So visualizing and voices, one is auditory, the other is visual. So it's two different aspects. So how are we doing that? So I've been thinking about those. And then from their answer to my question, I asked them, how do you think about yourself as a resident? But all their answer, they talk about how they think about themselves as a domestic worker. And I think that in some way I trigger, their reactions to fix their own identity as a domestic worker. But I know they see themselves not just a domestic worker, but just in answering my question, they fix themselves into that domestic worker position. So the voices came out from their description is like this, but that smile and those tears, right, in our interaction, mediated by the image, tell a different story to me. And I thought that if I don't have the chance to share here, if you just read my work in the future when I talk about my photographers, then you will hear the version of the tears and the smiles. But you probably wouldn't hear the version of what you are looking at right now. So whose voices am I going to presenting? Then that become a challenge to me to think about my academic goal. And the other one, as an activist, I thought that at the beginning I thought that I should show them how well they could take photos, how talented they are. And then the society would think about them differently. Then in the process, I heard a lot of their friends jokingly tell them that you will be the next Ziza, right? You know, the already well-known photographer who were former domestic worker, and they don't like that description at all. They think that's one way to, you know, kind of compare them with someone else. Then after, you know, thinking about the multiple voices and the possibility that can develop in the future, I am actually thinking that, you know, I'd probably be wrong by thinking that presenting their image, then I will be able to show their talent and change their view, right? But in that way, I also fit them into a photographer position and say if someone can be a photographer, then she can be more valuable. But that seems to be in conflict with my original, you know, goal there, right? So that's very briefly what I have been thinking so far. But there's a little bit, you know, sort of like anecdote to that, which is after our, you know, several rounds of discussion, then once Lian sent me another writing and say that because I was you know, asking them about their why they cry and the smile, and in the discussion they talk about domestic worker always smile because they can only smile. If you don't smile, you bring troubles to yourself. And so she has been thinking about the smiling part, and she told me that, you know, there was once I looking in the mirror and I see my own face, and I thought that, Lian, you shouldn't look like this. You should be smiling. So I hit my face, and then I smile, put on a smile, and then I smile again. And then, but after our conversation, she said that I recall that experience, and I asked myself, why do I have to continue to smile? And how do I now read other people's smiles? So I thought that it's not just visualizing voices of migrant domestic women for us, like, you know, me, but it's also visualizing the voices for themselves as well. So the story is developing because of the visual intervention there. So I have one last slide there. I quoted, this is a quote from a foreword in a book called Visual Anthropology that talks about a visual ethnographer's Collier, and then saying that her photo is not just a visual, right? Because he has lost his hearing, so he somehow managed to incorporate an auditory quality into his photographic image as well. So I'm thinking that this is a good way to think about domestic workers' photos. Almost like they also lost their voices in real life. And in the image, I do feel like there are certain voices there, in the quality there, not the multiple voices that I talked about. And I've been thinking very hard about how to make those voices being heard, not by words, it's voices without words, but it's voices in those images. So I'm really happy to have this opportunity to learn from all of you. Thank you.